A poor nurse gave her only doll to a sick girl, not knowing she was the daughter of a CEO single dad. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into the story. The story begins with a simple act of kindness. A poor nurse gave her only doll to a sick girl, not knowing she was the daughter of a CEO single dad. Imagine the warmth of the hospital room, the quiet hum of machines, and the soft glow of the nightlight casting shadows on the walls. Anna Monroe, a young nurse, had just finished her shift at the small community hospital. She had always been the kind of person to care deeply for her patients, often going beyond the call of duty. She worked long hours, juggling multiple jobs to make ends meet, but it was the small moments of connection that kept her going. That evening, as she walked down the dimly lit hallway of the pediatric ward, she noticed a little girl lying in the hospital bed, her face pale, her eyes closed in deep slumber. The girl's name was Lily, and she had been in the hospital for weeks. Her condition was serious, and her parents were rarely around. Anna could feel the weight of her loneliness, and it tugged at her heart. As she approached the bed, Anna smiled softly, looking at the little girl's empty hands. In her own small world, Anna had only one possession that was truly hers, a doll, a gift from her late mother. It was all she had to remember her by, a small comfort that she cherished deeply. Anna stood there for a moment, contemplating. She knew the girl needed something to hold, something to comfort her in the midst of all the medical treatments and the sterile, impersonal world of the hospital. Without thinking twice, Anna gently placed the doll in Lily's hands, whispering, "Here you go, little one. This is for you." Lily's eyes fluttered open for a brief moment, and a small, sleepy smile tugged at the corners of her lips. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. Anna's heart swelled with emotion as she watched the child hold the doll tightly, her little fingers curling around it. For a moment, Anna felt like she had done something truly meaningful, but little did she know, that simple act of kindness would set off a chain of events that would change her life forever. As Anna quietly walked away, she couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. In a world that often felt cold and unkind, it was the small acts of love that made it all worthwhile. She had given away her most precious possession, and it felt right. Little did she know, her world was about to collide with someone else's someone who would change everything. Later that night, after finishing her shift, Anna left the hospital and made her way home. The streets were quiet, and the cool evening air brushed against her face as she walked through the city. She was exhausted, but there was a lightness in her step. Maybe it was the thought of the little girl, clutching her doll, that made her heart feel a little warmer. But what Anna didn't realize was that this was just the beginning. Meanwhile, at a penthouse downtown, a man named James Carter was sitting by the window, staring out at the city lights. He had recently been dealing with a tough situation at work, and his thoughts kept drifting to his daughter, Lily, who was still in the hospital. James had built his fortune from the ground up, but the one thing that money couldn't buy was peace of mind, especially when it came to his daughter's health. His life was full of luxury, but it often felt hollow. His marriage had fallen apart years ago, and now he was raising Lily on his own. As he thought about his daughter, he decided to visit her the next day. He wasn't one to ask for help, but he knew he needed someone to care for her in a way that he couldn't. He had been so consumed by work that he barely had time to be there for her. The next morning, James arrived at the hospital, and as he walked through the halls, he noticed a nurse with kind eyes and a soft smile. She was standing by Lily's bed, adjusting the sheets, and for some reason, he felt drawn to her. He didn't know why, but there was something about her that felt different, genuine, sincere. As James watched her, he felt a wave of gratitude. Anna was the one who had taken care of Lily during her time at the hospital, the one who had given her the comfort she needed in her most vulnerable moments. He watched as she left the room, her face tired but kind, and he felt compelled to introduce himself. He walked up to her, his footsteps soft against the hospital floor. "Excuse me," he said, his voice deep and calm. "I just wanted to thank you for taking care of my daughter. You've made a difference." Anna turned, startled by the man's presence. She looked up, and for the first time, their eyes met. In that instant, something unspoken passed between them. James offered a small smile. "I'm James Carter, by the way. I'm Lily's father." As Anna continued down the hallway, her thoughts lingered on Lily, the little girl she had just met. The moment she had given away her precious doll seemed to replay in her mind, a small act of kindness that had somehow left her feeling both fulfilled and empty at the same time. It had been a long day, but she knew that small gestures like that could make all the difference in a child's life. Still, the weight of her own reality, working long hours, barely scraping by, and struggling to make ends meet, reminded her of how little she truly had. As she stepped outside into the cool evening air, the quiet of the city seemed to swallow her up. The night was calm, with only the sound of her footsteps echoing through the empty streets. It was moments like this when she felt most alone, but she quickly shook off the feeling. She had a job to do, and she had to keep going, no matter how difficult things seemed. The walk home wasn't long, but it was enough time for her to reflect on the past few weeks, on the way things had changed since she started working at the hospital. Her days were filled with caring for others, but her nights were a different story. Alone in her small apartment, she often found herself yearning for more than just survival, yearning for connection. Little did she know, that connection was closer than she realized. The next morning, Anna arrived early at the hospital for her shift, feeling more tired than usual. The events of the previous night had left her mind restless, and she found it hard to focus. As she walked into the pediatric ward, she was met by a familiar face, Lily's. The little girl was sitting up in bed, holding the doll Anna had given her the night before. It brought a smile to Anna's face. But what really caught her attention was the man standing next to her. James Carter, Lily's father, had returned. This time, he wasn't just a figure in the background of her thoughts. He was right there, in front of her. He looked at her with a deep, searching gaze, as if he was weighing something in his mind. There was something about him that seemed different from the other wealthy men she had encountered in her life. He wasn't like the others, the ones who only cared about money and status. His eyes held a depth that made her feel seen. Anna felt a knot tighten in her stomach as she nervously adjusted her uniform. She wasn't sure how to approach him after all. He was a billionaire, a man who could have anything he wanted. But as he stepped closer, she saw the concern in his eyes, and that made her forget her reservations. "How's she doing today?" James asked, his voice gentle but firm. "She's doing much better," Anna replied, trying to mask the nervousness in her voice. "The doll seems to be helping." James's eyes flicked to the doll in Lily's hands, then back to Anna. "I can't thank you enough for what you've done for her," he said quietly. "You're the one who's made all the difference." Anna didn't know how to respond. Her heart fluttered in her chest, and for a moment, she felt a strange sense of connection to him. It was as if they were no longer strangers. There was something about his gratitude that made her feel valued, something she hadn't felt in a long time. As the conversation continued, Anna found herself opening up more than she usually did. She talked about her struggles, her dreams of becoming a doctor one day, and the challenges she faced balancing her work and personal life. James listened intently, his eyes never leaving hers. He didn't interrupt or try to fix her problems, he simply listened, and that made all the difference. "You know, Anna," James said after a long pause, "you're one of the most selfless people I've ever met." His words took her by surprise, and she felt a warmth spread through her chest. I don't know about that," she said, her voice soft. "I'm just doing my job." But James shook his head. "No, you're doing so much more than that. You're making a difference in her life. In all of our lives." As he spoke, Anna couldn't help but feel a flutter of hope. Maybe things could change for her, too. Maybe she didn't have to keep struggling alone. After all, this man, this CEO, who had everything, was taking the time to recognize her efforts. That meant something, didn't it? They spent the next few hours talking, sharing stories, and for the first time in a long time, Anna felt seen. But as the day went on, she couldn't help but feel the weight of the situation. James was a man who lived in a world completely different from hers. He had power, wealth, and influence. She was just a nurse, struggling to pay rent and make ends meet. Could they really have anything in common? Or was this just a fleeting connection, something that would fade away once the moment was over. But as the day turned to evening, and Anna prepared to leave, James stopped her at the door. "I know this might sound strange," he said, his voice steady but filled with sincerity, "but I'd like to help you. You've been a great support to Lily, and I want to offer you something in return." Anna paused, unsure of what he meant. "What do you mean?" she asked. James hesitated, then pulled out a business card. "I'm starting a new project, something that focuses on giving back to the community. I'd like you to be a part of it. I think you have what it takes to make a real difference." Anna's heart raced as she took the card, staring at it in disbelief. She had never expected something like this. Could this be the chance she had been waiting for? As Anna stood there, holding the business card in her hand, she couldn't believe what had just happened. She looked up at James, his steady gaze meeting hers, and for a moment, everything seemed to slow down. He was offering her something she had never dreamed of, an opportunity to be part of something bigger than herself. She had spent so many years just trying to survive, working endless hours and barely scraping by, that the idea of a real chance to change her life felt almost surreal. She hesitated, unsure of what to say. I don't know what to say," Anna finally managed, her voice shaking slightly. "This is a lot to take in." James smiled, his expression softening. "I understand. This is a big step, but I think you're capable of so much more than you realize. You've already shown me what kind of person you are, the kind who gives everything, even when she has nothing." His words hit her harder than she expected. She had always seen herself as someone who was just getting by, never really believing she could do anything extraordinary. But James saw something in her that she hadn't seen in herself. That thought made her heart race. "I'm not sure I can do something like this," Anna said, her voice quieter now. "I'm just a nurse. I don't have the qualifications you're looking for." James took a step closer, his expression thoughtful. "Anna, you have something far more important than qualifications. You have heart. And that's something that can't be taught. People like you, people who care, are rare. I need someone like you in my life. Someone who can make a real difference." Anna felt her chest tighten at his words. There was sincerity in his voice, a deep honesty that made her want to believe him. She had spent so much of her life doubting her worth, wondering if she was just another face in the crowd. But now, in this moment, it felt like something inside her was shifting. Could she really take a leap like this? Could she leave behind everything she knew to step into a new world, one that seemed so far beyond her reach? She looked down at the card again, the weight of it in her hand heavy with possibility. After a long pause, Anna finally nodded. "I'll do it," she said, her voice steady now, a spark of determination lighting up in her eyes. "I'll give it a try." James's face lit up with a smile that made her heart flutter. "I knew you would," he said warmly. "You won't regret this, Anna. I'll make sure of it." That evening, as Anna walked home, the weight of the decision she had just made began to settle in. She felt a mix of excitement and fear, her thoughts racing a mile a minute. What had she just committed to? Was she really ready to step into a world so different from the one she had known? The thought of working with James Carter, of being part of his world, felt overwhelming. But at the same time, there was a part of her that was eager to take the chance, to prove to herself that she was capable of more than just surviving. As she walked into her small apartment, she could still feel the weight of the business card in her hand, a symbol of the new beginning that was now within her reach. She put the card on the kitchen counter and took a deep breath, allowing herself a moment of reflection. This could be her chance to finally escape the cycle of exhaustion and uncertainty she had lived with for so long. It could be the opportunity that changed everything. But even as she thought about the future, she knew that this was just the beginning. The next few days passed in a blur as Anna began preparing for her new role. She had a meeting with James the following week to discuss the details of the project he was starting, and she could hardly contain her nerves. She had never been part of something so big before, and she wasn't sure if she was ready. But she couldn't deny the excitement that had been growing inside her. This was her chance to make a real difference, to do something meaningful with her life. It was exactly what she had always wanted, but never thought she would get. When the day of the meeting finally arrived, Anna walked into James's office building, feeling like a fish out of water. The sleek, modern building, the polished floors, the expensive artwork on the walls, everything about it screamed luxury, a world she had never known. But James greeted her with a warm smile, as though she belonged there just as much as anyone else. "Glad you could make it," he said, leading her into a conference room. The moment she stepped inside, Anna was taken aback. The room was filled with people, all dressed in business attire, their conversations ceasing as soon as she entered. She felt out of place, a sense of unease creeping up on her. But James, ever the calm presence, motioned for her to sit beside him. "Everyone, this is Anna Monroe," he said, his voice carrying across the room. "She's going to be joining us on this project. I'm confident she'll bring a fresh perspective." Anna felt all eyes on her, and for a moment she wanted to shrink into herself. But then she saw James's encouraging smile, and she felt a sense of reassurance. This was it. This was the start of something new, something bigger than she could have ever imagined. And as the meeting began, Anna realized that this wasn't just about the job. It was about her finally finding the courage to believe in herself. As the days passed, Anna found herself gradually adjusting to her new life. The first few weeks were a whirlwind of meetings, learning curves, and a growing sense of disbelief. She had never imagined that she would be working alongside some of the most powerful and influential people in the city, let alone being part of a project that had the potential to change lives. But despite the initial shock, Anna began to thrive in the environment. She was learning, growing, and most importantly, feeling like she finally had a purpose. Her work with James and his team focused on providing support to underprivileged communities, offering them resources, education, and opportunities that could transform their lives. It was exactly the kind of work Anna had always dreamed of, but never thought she would be able to do. As the weeks went on, Anna became more and more involved in the project. She attended meetings, helped with planning, and even began to take on leadership roles in some of the initiatives. She was amazed by how much she was learning, and how quickly she was adapting to the challenges that came her way. It wasn't long before she gained the respect of her colleagues, who admired her dedication and passion. James, too, seemed to take notice of her growth. He would often praise her for her hard work, and over time, their professional relationship began to shift. There was a warmth between them now, a connection that went beyond their initial meeting. As they worked together, they shared more than just business ideas. They shared personal stories, dreams, and fears. James would tell her about the challenges of being a single father, and how he had struggled to balance his career with raising Lily on his own. Anna, in turn, spoke about her own upbringing, the struggles she faced growing up, and how she had always hoped for a better life. Their conversations were easy, natural, and filled with a sense of mutual respect. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, James invited Anna to dinner. "I know you've been working hard," he said, his voice soft but sincere. "Why don't we take a break and grab something to eat? It's on me." Anna was taken aback by the offer, but she couldn't deny that the idea of spending some time with James outside of work intrigued her. She had grown fond of him, not just for his success or his generosity, but for the person he was beneath it all. He was kind, genuine, and seemed to truly care about making a difference in the world. As they sat down at a small restaurant, the atmosphere was relaxed and comfortable. James ordered their food, and they spent the next hour talking about everything and nothing: life, love, work, and the future. For Anna, it felt like a moment of calm in the midst of the chaos she had been living in. She found herself laughing, truly laughing, for the first time in what felt like forever. It was in that moment that she realized how far she had come. From the nurse working long hours in a small hospital to the woman sitting at a dinner table with a CEO, she had changed more than she ever thought possible. But as much as she had grown, she knew that this wasn't just about career success or financial stability. It was about finding a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose. James was more than just a boss to her. He had become a friend, a confidant, and, as she began to realize, someone she was starting to care about deeply. Their dinner ended with a quiet walk through the city streets. As they reached her apartment building, James stopped and turned to her. "Anna," he said, his voice gentle, "I've been thinking a lot lately. You've made a bigger impact on my life than you realize. You've helped me see things differently, and I think you're someone very special." Anna felt her heart skip a beat. She had never expected to hear something like that from him, not in a million years. Her breath caught in her throat as she looked up at him, unsure of how to respond. Was this just a moment of gratitude, or was it something more? Before she could say anything, James smiled and placed a hand on her shoulder. "I'm not asking for anything, Anna," he continued, his eyes locking with hers. "But I want you to know how much you mean to me. You've changed my life, and I'm grateful for that." Anna smiled softly, her heart filled with warmth. She had never thought that a simple act of kindness, giving away her doll, would lead her here standing on the streets of the city with a man who had become so important to her. She had always thought that her life would be defined by the struggles she faced, but now, for the first time, she felt like she had a real chance at something more. As they said goodnight and Anna stepped into her building, she couldn't help but feel a sense of peace wash over her. She had come so far, and yet, she knew that the journey was just beginning. There were still challenges ahead, but for the first time in a long time, she was ready to face them head-on. She had found a new purpose, a new family in James and Lily, and a love that was blossoming in unexpected ways. The future seemed brighter than ever, and Anna was finally beginning to believe that, maybe, just maybe, she deserved it. The days continued to pass, and with each one, Anna found herself becoming more and more entrenched in her new life. Her days at the office were filled with meetings, projects, and an ever-increasing sense of responsibility. She had come a long way from the shy, unsure nurse who had been given the chance of a lifetime. Now, she was becoming a key player in James's vision for the community. And it was thrilling. But as much as she had grown professionally, there was still a nagging voice in the back of her mind, telling her that maybe she wasn't really ready for all of this. She would often find herself questioning whether she truly belonged in this world of high-powered business executives and million-dollar projects. Yet, every time she shared her thoughts with James, he reassured her, telling her that she was more than capable, that she had a gift for connecting with people, and that her heart was what truly set her apart. One afternoon, after a particularly intense meeting, James invited her out for coffee. "You've been working really hard," he said with a smile. "You deserve a break." Anna hesitated at first, but eventually agreed, feeling the weight of the long hours and growing pressure lift for just a moment. They walked to a nearby cafe, the crisp autumn air refreshing after being cooped up inside all day. As they sat down with their drinks, the conversation drifted from work to more personal topics. James spoke about his daughter Lily, the challenges of raising her as a single father, and how, despite everything, she was the one thing that kept him grounded. Anna listened intently, her heart warmed by his openness. She admired his strength, his ability to balance the immense responsibility of being a CEO with the tender care of a father. As the conversation continued, she felt something stir within her, a sense of connection that went beyond their professional relationship. For the first time in a long while, she found herself thinking not just about the future of the project, but about her own future. She had always been so focused on survival, on getting by, that she hadn't allowed herself to think about what she truly wanted. Now, sitting across from James, she realized that there was more to life than just making ends meet. There was the possibility of love, companionship, and, most importantly, happiness. James noticed the shift in Anna's demeanor and leaned forward slightly, his eyes filled with understanding. "You've been through a lot, Anna," he said gently. "I can see it, but I want you to know that you don't have to go through it alone anymore. You've got me, and you've got Lily, too. We're a family, whether you realize it or not." Anna's breath caught in her throat. She had never allowed herself to think of herself as part of a family before, but James's words touched something deep inside her. She had always been independent, never relying on anyone else, but now she felt something shift. Could she truly let herself be part of something bigger, something real? She wasn't sure, but for the first time, the idea didn't seem as impossible as it once had. "I've always been so focused on surviving," Anna said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I never stopped to think about what I really wanted." James reached across the table, placing a hand gently over hers. "You deserve more than survival, Anna. You deserve a life filled with joy, love, and purpose." His words resonated deep within her, and she realized for the first time in a long time that she had the power to change her own story. That night, as Anna walked home, the world felt different. She wasn't sure what the future held, but she knew she was no longer alone. She had found a new sense of belonging, not just with James, but with Lily as well. It was a family she had never expected, one she had never dreamed could be hers. As she lay in bed that night, the soft glow of the streetlight filtering through her window, Anna closed her eyes and allowed herself to imagine a life that was full of possibility. A life where she didn't have to just get by, where she could thrive, love, and build something meaningful. She was ready for that future, ready to step into it with open arms. And for the first time in her life, she truly believed she deserved it. As the days turned into weeks, Anna's life continued to transform in ways she never expected. The project she was working on with James gained momentum, and she was becoming more confident in her role. What had started as a small opportunity, a chance to make a difference, was growing into something much larger than she had ever imagined. She found herself constantly learning, not just about the work itself, but about the kind of person she was becoming in the process. James, too, seemed to notice the changes in her. He would often comment on her progress, praising her insight and leadership. His admiration meant more to her than she could put into words. But despite all of the success she was experiencing at work, there was one area of her life that still felt uncertain: her relationship with James. They had grown closer over the past few months, sharing more personal moments and deeper conversations, but Anna couldn't shake the feeling that there was still something unspoken between them. Every time she looked at James, she felt a pull, a connection that went beyond their professional relationship. But she was scared. Scared that maybe she wasn't enough for him, that maybe she wasn't the kind of woman who deserved someone like him. He was a successful, wealthy CEO, and she was just a nurse who had worked her way up from nothing. How could someone like her truly fit into his world? She pushed these thoughts to the back of her mind, focusing instead on the work she was doing and the impact it was having. But when she was alone, those thoughts crept back in, and she couldn't help but wonder if she was just a temporary part of his life. One evening, after a long day of meetings and planning, James asked Anna to join him for a quiet dinner at his apartment. "You've been working so hard," he said, his voice filled with genuine care. "Let's have a night to ourselves. No work, just dinner and conversation." Anna felt her heart flutter at the invitation. She had spent so many nights focused on her work that the idea of spending time with James outside of the office felt both exciting and nerve-wracking. As she arrived at his apartment, the familiar warmth of his presence enveloped her. His place was elegant but cozy, and there was an undeniable comfort in the way he greeted her, like they had known each other for years. They spent the evening talking, laughing, and enjoying each other's company. The chemistry between them was undeniable. And as the night wore on, Anna felt her walls slowly starting to crumble. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she could truly be herself. No expectations, no pressure. Just two people who enjoyed being in each other's presence. As the evening drew to a close, James walked Anna to the door. "I'm really glad you came tonight," he said, his voice softer now, more intimate. "I've enjoyed every minute of it." Anna smiled, her heart beating faster than usual. "Me too," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. There was a moment of silence between them, and then James stepped closer, his hand gently touching her arm. "Anna," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I need you to know something. I care about you, more than you realize." Anna felt her breath catch in her throat. Her heart raced as she looked up at him, searching his eyes for any sign of hesitation, but all she saw was sincerity. "James, she started, but he gently placed a finger on her lips, silencing her. "I've known for a while," he said softly, "that I want you in my life. I want more than just a working relationship with you. I want us to be something real." The words hung in the air between them, and Anna's mind went blank. She had never expected this moment, never imagined that someone like James could feel this way about her. But as she stood there, in his arms, the doubts and insecurities that had plagued her for so long began to fade away. She had spent so much of her life doubting her worth, doubting that she deserved happiness, that she could have love. But now, here she was, in the arms of a man who truly saw her, who appreciated her for everything she was. "I care about you too," Anna whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "More than you know," James smiled, a soft, genuine smile that reached his eyes. "Then let's make this work," he said, pulling her closer. And in that moment, Anna realized that she had found something she had always wanted but never thought was possible. She had found love, real love, with someone who saw her as more than just a nurse, more than just someone to be helped. She was someone worth loving, someone worth building a future with. The following days were filled with excitement, anticipation, and a newfound sense of joy. Anna and James began to navigate their relationship, taking it one step at a time. It wasn't always easy, but they were in it together, supporting each other through the highs and lows. And with each passing day, Anna felt more and more at home in her new life, knowing that this was only the beginning of the beautiful future they would build together. As Anna and James's relationship grew stronger, the days felt lighter, filled with a new sense of purpose and joy. Anna found herself thriving, not just at work but in her personal life as well. Every day brought new opportunities, new challenges, but most importantly, it brought her closer to the life she had always dreamed of, a life where love, support, and happiness were no longer out of reach. However, as the couple moved forward in their relationship, Anna couldn't shake the lingering doubt that had always haunted her. She had come so far, yes, but was she really worthy of all the good things that were happening in her life? James had given her more than just a job. He had given her a chance at a new life, one that was full of promise and love, yet she couldn't quite rid herself of the feeling that she wasn't good enough for him. She had come from such humble beginnings, and now she was living a life she had never even imagined. She was a nurse turned leader in a world of high-powered executives, surrounded by wealth and luxury. But was it all too much for her to handle? It was one evening after work, as she sat on the couch in her apartment, her mind racing with these thoughts, that James called. "How's my favorite nurse?" he asked, his voice warm and soothing, the familiar sound that always calmed her nerves. "I'm good, just thinking about everything, you know?" Anna replied softly, running a hand through her hair. "Everything?" James asked, sensing her unease. "What's going on in that head of yours?" Anna hesitated for a moment before speaking. I don't know if I'm cut out for all of this, James. I've worked so hard to get here, and I'm grateful for everything you've done, but I feel like maybe I'm not. I'm not good enough for all this." She heard him pause on the other end of the line, and her heart sank. Was she being too honest? Maybe this wasn't something she should be worrying about, but it had been on her mind for weeks, and she couldn't keep it inside anymore. "Anna," James said, his voice steady and filled with concern, "I don't want you to think for one second that you're not good enough. You are more than enough. You always have been." His words were like a balm to her wounded heart, but she couldn't help the nagging feeling that still lingered. "But you've worked so hard for everything you have, and I just feel like I'm in over my head." Anna's voice cracked slightly as she spoke. She had never been one to express her vulnerabilities openly, but this felt different. This felt like something she needed to let out. "Anna, listen to me," James said, his tone softening. "What you've accomplished, what you're doing now, it's not about where you came from or how much you have. It's about who you are. And you are someone who cares, who works hard, and who makes a difference. You make my life better just by being in it." She could feel the sincerity in his words, and it made her heart swell with emotion. She had always doubted herself, but maybe, just maybe, it was time to start believing that she was worthy of all the love and success she had found. "Thank you," Anna whispered, her voice thick with gratitude. "I needed to hear that." "Anytime," James replied, a soft chuckle escaping him. "I'm not going anywhere, Anna, and neither are you." The next few days felt like a turning point for Anna. She began to realize that her insecurities weren't just about her worthiness in her relationship with James, they were about her relationship with herself. She had spent so long fighting to survive, to prove herself, that she had forgotten to give herself credit for how far she had come. She had worked hard to get where she was, and she had every right to be proud of the woman she had become. It wasn't just about her career or her success in the project. It was about her heart, her resilience, and her ability to love and care for others. As she stood in front of the mirror one morning, getting ready for work, she looked at herself with new eyes. She wasn't just a nurse. She was a leader, a partner, a woman who had the strength to take on whatever came her way. And she knew, deep down, that she had earned her place in this new life, with James, with the project, and with herself. At work, Anna began to take on more leadership roles, speaking up in meetings, offering ideas that were met with respect and admiration from her colleagues. She felt more confident than ever, not because of her position, but because she finally felt like she belonged, like she deserved to be where she was. And when James looked at her with pride, a warmth that only came from someone who truly cared, she knew that he believed in her too. Over the next few months, their relationship deepened even further. They spent more time together, not just working side by side, but building something together, something that was rooted in trust, respect, and, above all, love. Anna no longer saw herself as someone who was out of place or in over her head. She had found her place in the world, and it was with James. And as they stood together, hand in hand, looking at the future they would build together, Anna finally realized that all the love and success she had found were not just a gift, they were a reflection of everything she had worked for and deserved. The journey was far from over, but for the first time, Anna felt truly at peace with herself and her future. As the months passed, Anna continued to settle into her new life with a sense of peace she had never known before. She had become more than just a part of the project. She had become a leader in her own right, guiding others with the same passion and care that she had always shown. Her relationship with James had deepened, blossoming into something beautiful, something real. They had built a life together that was rooted in trust, respect, and love. Anna knew she had found the place where she truly belonged. One afternoon, as they were sitting in James's office, discussing the next phase of their project, Anna couldn't help but notice the way he was looking at her. His gaze was warm, filled with admiration, but also something deeper, something that made her heart race. "Anna," he said softly, his voice carrying a tenderness she hadn't heard before. "I've been thinking a lot lately. About us, about everything we've built together." Anna looked up from her notes, her heart skipping a beat. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice quiet but filled with curiosity. James leaned back in his chair, his hands resting on the desk in front of him, and for a moment, there was a silence between them. It wasn't uncomfortable, though it was filled with anticipation, as if something important was about to be said. "What we have here," he began, his voice steady and sincere, "is something incredible, and I want to make it official. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, Anna." Anna's breath caught in her throat. She hadn't expected this, not in the way he was saying it, not at this moment. Her heart raced as she searched his eyes, looking for any sign of doubt or hesitation. But all she saw was certainty. James wasn't just talking about love, he was talking about forever. "James," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly, "are you sure?" He smiled, that soft, warm smile that always made her feel like the most important person in the world. "I'm sure," he replied, his voice unwavering. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I want you by my side, always." The words hung in the air between them, and Anna felt a surge of emotion wash over her. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the moment when everything she had worked for, all the struggles, all the growth, had led her to this point. She was no longer just a nurse or a project leader, she was someone who was loved, truly loved, by someone who saw her for who she truly was. "Yes," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, but filled with so much certainty. "Yes, I want that too." James stood up, moving around the desk to stand in front of her. Without saying another word, he reached out and took her hands in his, holding them gently, but firmly. "I love you, Anna," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "And I promise, I'll always love you." Anna felt tears well up in her eyes as she looked up at him, her heart swelling with happiness and gratitude. She had spent so much of her life feeling unworthy, feeling like she didn't belong. But here, in this moment, with James, she realized how far she had come. She had found love, not just in him, but in herself as well. And that, she knew, was the greatest gift of all. Their journey together wasn't over, but in that moment, they both knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. As the weeks went on, they continued to build their future, not just through their work, but through their love for each other. The project flourished, and so did their relationship. They traveled together, spent time with Lily, and made memories that would last a lifetime. But even as everything around them seemed to be falling into place, Anna never forgot the lessons she had learned along the way. She had learned that love wasn't just about grand gestures or fairy tale endings. It was about the small, everyday moments, the quiet conversations, the support during difficult times, and the willingness to grow together. And as she stood next to James, her hand in his, looking toward their future, Anna knew that the best was yet to come. It was a future built on love, trust, and a shared dream. And for the first time in her life, Anna believed that she truly deserved it. As the months passed, Anna and James's life together became more than she had ever imagined. What had once been a dream, working on meaningful projects, finding love, building a family, had turned into a beautiful reality. They continued to work side by side, not just on the community projects that had brought them together, but also on their personal relationship, strengthening it with every passing day. James's business had flourished, and their shared vision for helping others had expanded into something truly impactful. Together, they had changed countless lives, providing opportunities and resources for those who needed it most. For Anna, it was not just about the work anymore. It was about the legacy they were building together, a legacy rooted in kindness, love, and the belief that anything was possible with hard work and compassion. In the midst of all their success, however, one thing remained constant: their love for each other. James had proven time and time again that he wasn't just a successful businessman. He was a loving partner and a devoted father. Anna had always admired him for his drive, his vision, and his determination, but it was his heart that truly captivated her. He had given her everything she had ever dreamed of, not just in terms of opportunities, but in love, in support, and in a family that she had never thought was possible for someone like her. For the first time in her life, Anna felt whole. She was no longer just surviving. She was living, truly living, in a way she had never experienced before. It was at a charity gala, one that they had worked so hard to organize together, that James surprised her. As they stood on stage, thanking the guests for their support, James turned to her with a smile that was both playful and sincere. "There's one more thing I want to say," he said, his voice carrying across the room. Anna raised an eyebrow, curious about what he was going to say. "Anna," he continued, "you've been the heart and soul of everything we've built together. Without you, none of this would be possible. You've shown me what true love and partnership really mean, and I can't imagine my life without you in it." Anna's heart skipped a beat. She had no idea what he was getting at, but she could feel the weight of the moment. Then, to her shock, James dropped to one knee in front of her, holding out a small velvet box. The room went silent, and all Anna could hear was the pounding of her own heart. "Anna Monroe," James said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Will you marry me? Will you be my partner in every sense of the word, not just in business, but in life? Will you spend the rest of your days with me, building a future full of love and happiness?" Anna's eyes filled with tears as she looked at the man who had changed her life in ways she never thought possible. She had never dreamed of this moment, but now, standing here, surrounded by the people who had supported them, she realized that this was exactly what she had always wanted: a love that was real, a family that was whole, and a future that was filled with endless possibilities. "Yes," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "Yes, I will marry you." The crowd erupted into applause, but all Anna could see was James, kneeling in front of her, his eyes filled with love and devotion. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, she knew that this was the beginning of their next chapter, one that would be filled with even more love, more growth, and more of the incredible life they had built together. Over the following months, their wedding plans came together in a way that felt effortless. It wasn't a grand affair, but a small, intimate ceremony surrounded by their closest friends and family. Anna had never imagined herself as the type of person to have a fairy tale wedding. But this was different. This was real. This was her story, and it was more than she had ever hoped for. On the day of their wedding, as she walked down the aisle, hand in hand with her father, Anna couldn't help but think about how far she had come. She had started out as a woman who was unsure of her worth, unsure of where she fit in the world. But now, here she was, marrying the man she loved, with a life full of promise ahead of her. James waited at the altar, his smile wide as he took her hand. As they exchanged vows, Anna felt a wave of emotion wash over her. This wasn't just a union of two people, it was the culmination of everything they had worked for, everything they had fought for, and everything they had become together. They had built a life of love, trust, and respect, and now they were sealing that commitment with a promise. "I love you," James said, his voice thick with emotion, "and I will always love you, through every challenge, every triumph, and every moment in between." Anna's heart swelled as she replied, "I love you too, with all my heart, and I promise to always stand by your side, no matter what the future holds." The moment they shared was quiet, but it was filled with so much meaning. As they sealed their vows with a kiss, Anna knew that this was only the beginning. Their journey wasn't over, but it had led them to this moment, a moment of pure happiness, surrounded by the love of their family and friends. Anna had finally found the love she had always deserved, and with James by her side, she knew there was nothing they couldn't face together. This was their happily ever after, and it was just the beginning.